Hello, I'm Natalia Wilmot and I'm here with artist Lucy McElroy in my home for drawing flowers with Lucy. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Why do you like art?
So for me, making art has always been about capturing the beauty in the world around me, whether that's drawing people or animals or beautiful flowers. I think there's something really lovely about taking the time to draw a flower. We all love having them in our homes, and we all appreciate how beautiful they are. But when you stop and actually really look closely enough in order to be able to make a drawing, you appreciate them on a different level.
I totally agree. So grab a lovely cup of coffee or tea, a pencil, paper and some flowers, and let's start.
It's going to be a really relaxing experience.
Enjoy! Before you start drawing, I thought I would show you a few beautiful pencil drawings from 1916-1917 from a student at the Leeds School of Art, and she was a scholarship student in illustration. And what's lovely to see here is how she's used her page over a number of months, and you've got the different seasons represented here with December, January, February, and you've got a mix of pencil drawing, beautiful ink, pen on paper rather. I just love even just this parrot. He's so beautifully drawn, and it seems like there's hardly anything on it. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But he's really beautiful. And then beautiful watercolor, you see just on the wings of these butterflies. And everything's got different scales. So you've got the holly quite big, you've got the pumpkins really small. So, but it just works really beautiful as a page.
So the first thing is to choose which flower you'd like to draw. And it's nice to take a little bit of time to look at, if you've got a collection, to look at all of them and appreciate how beautiful they are. And then choose one that you think you would particularly like to spend some time observing. I've been looking at and thinking about the illustrations by Rennie Mackintosh. In 1914, he went on a retreat to Walberswick, and where he made many drawings of flowers, botanical drawings. So one of the things I particularly like about the Mackintosh illustrations is that they are botanically accurate, but he's clearly taken some time to plan out how he wants to compose his drawing. There's something that's reminiscent of his architectural designs in the way that he's laid out the plants. And he doesn't, so you can see he's not always being tied to creating something that would, how we would perhaps think of like a photograph, or on the same drawing you can often see the flower being looked at from different angles. So he might take a view from the side, sort of profile view of the flower, and then on the same image, almost kind of superimposed over the top, he's then looking at it from a different angle, maybe looking down from above, sort of a bird's eye view of the petals. I particularly like how sometimes his drawings, his compositions are asymmetric. So rather than just thinking about putting the flower in the middle of the page, he's using the space. So before you start drawing, you've chosen your flower, you've had a bit of time to look at it and think about which angle you might want to start drawing it from. And then we're going to think about how you're going to use the space on the page, where you're going to place your flower. To start my drawing, I'm going to put my flower down next to me. and I'm going to start by plotting out where the flower and the stem's going to go. So I'm going to draw the whole of this little cutting here. The nice thing about drawing plants, one of the reasons I think that it's can be a particularly relaxing activity, is that they're quite forgiving. If we don't get the proportions exactly right, if it's not perfect, we will still be able to recognise it as a flower, and hopefully even recognise it as the particular species. But to be honest, even that doesn't actually matter. I think for me, sometimes with drawing, it's more about the actual experience of making the drawing as it is about the outcome at the end. Are you ready? Am I going? Okay. So I've picked the flower up now to have a look at this leaf here. And I'm going to plot out where I want the leaf to be on the page, looking at the furthest points. And I'm going to sketch in the shape. When I'm observing, when I'm drawing anything, whether I'm drawing from life or whether I'm drawing, sometimes when I'm drawing, I draw from photographs. I spend, I'd say, probably about 70% of the time looking at the thing that I'm drawing, and only 30 or even less than that, 30% of the time looking at my drawing. I think one of the temptations, particularly if we're not feeling very confident about our drawing, is to want to look at our own drawing all the time. But of course, what we actually need to do is to really carefully, closely observe the thing that we're looking at, the thing that we're wanting to copy. So it's trying to keep our eyes on the object itself. When I'm drawing, I often look at what we call the negative space as well as the positive space. So when I'm thinking about the flower, the positive space is the actual flower and the leaves itself, the object. And the negative space are the gaps between. So it's sort of where I can see, in this case, it's where I can see the paper through behind the flowers. And I look at that shape, the gaps in between. And sometimes that's actually easier. It's easier to see how it actually is. Because learning to draw really is about learning to see. And you see, our brains are programmed for us functioning day to day in life. And in order to do that, although we feel like we're looking, we feel like we're seeing things, when we're not accurately seeing, not truthfully seeing what's actually there. So learning to draw is about learning to force your brain into seeing what is actually really there. When I'm drawing the plants, I'm interested in where different bits of them connect. So interested in where the stem joins onto the leaf, how it gets thicker at that particular point, how the stem emerges from that thickening bit there. Now again, I'm going to just turn my flower slightly here so that I can actually see the beautiful shapes of these leaves here. And again, I'm going to plot out where I want those to be. I'm noticing that they're much smaller than this big leaf down here. Oh, I don't like that bit. And I think it's not only okay to make corrections as you draw. I think it's actually, it's a good thing. It's a good habit to get into, to feel completely comfortable with correcting yourself as you're going along. When I'm drawing something that has to be more precise in the way that we're drawing these flowers today, something like a portrait, I correct more than I get right, as it were. It's very unlikely that my first marks will be the marks that I will keep in the final portrait. For me, the drawing is often I often think of it more as a series of correcting my mistakes in order to reach something that I'm happy with, something that I feel is accurate. It's more about correcting than being perfect first time. Oh, on this flower here, there's these lovely teeny tiny little leaves here, and I love the one of the things I've always loved about drawing plants, drawing flowers or trees is the organic shapes. So things that they're not regular, they're not perfect. It's not like something man-made that's all right angles. You've got these lovely organic shapes that that artists like Mackintosh and so many other people who've drawn plants before, that they love to exploit in their work, because I think the human eye really does really appreciates that slight irregularity. Okay. Now, when I come to the head of the flower up here with the petals, I need to think about what angle I want to look at it from, and which way round I want to look at it. One of the things I particularly enjoy about this flower, one of the reasons I chose it, is the way these petals are curving over, and that gives us a really nice thing to draw. It's quite nice to be able to draw the way that folds over. It gives a little bit of three-dimensionality to our drawing. And I'm going to choose to very definitely look at it in profile. I might then put maybe later I might look at it this way and have a bird's eye view of those petals, maybe over here. But for now, I'm going to look at it side on. And And again, I'm going to plot out for myself roughly where each petal is going to go. It is important once I've decided on the angle that I'm going to draw, I'm going to look at it from, I'm going to draw it from, I need to then keep it in the same place in relation to my eyes. Because if I keep moving it around, I'm going to get lost and not know which bit I'm drawing. And that's why it's easier to draw from a photograph than it is to draw from life, because when we're drawing from life, we are moving, and the thing we're drawing might be moving. And also, it's a challenge when we're drawing something from life. We have the challenge, we're translating the 3D world, something three-dimensional, into something two-dimensional. And effectively, really what we're doing is we're creating an illusion of an extra dimension on the two-dimensional paper. Got a little bit lost there. So if it's been a while since you've picked up a pencil and done any drawing, or perhaps you're feeling a little bit nervous to get started, this is a nice little warm-up exercise you can try. So there's one rule, and that is that you are not allowed to look at your pencil whilst you are drawing. So you're going to choose a flower, like Natalia has here, and you're going to put your pencil on the paper, place your eyes somewhere on the flower, and you're going to follow the shapes of the flower as your pencil is moving on the paper. This is what we call a blind drawing, because you're not going to look at the drawing at all. It's a really nice way of loosening up and getting into the drawing zone, focusing your observational attention on the flower. And at the end, what you've produced might look rather funny. Actually, that's not at all bad, Natalia.
It's nice to see the different angles, I think. Because that's what's so nice about looking at flowers, is they're so intricate. They're just perfect, aren't they? Just every single one is unique and has its own shape and shading and colours, and I think that's why it's such a nice exercise doing this, is you look at things much more intently, and that is already so relaxing in itself to do that. Yeah. Because as you said earlier, we do forget to do that every day. We're in a rush and we don't take that lovely time to appreciate what's around us. And nature really grounds us as well. So the fact of even walking in nature and picking something and looking at it and then keeping this memory, basically this is a memory of this time, so when you look at it later and even just the sound of the pencil on the paper is very soothing.
So I often find when I'm drawing that I lose track of time. So if I'm working in my studio, particularly in the afternoon, I have to have an alarm that tells me when it's time to go and pick up the children from school, because otherwise I might just entirely lose myself in the drawing or painting process.
That's the joy of creation. I think everybody does that. And it's you get that also with exercise, you know. You're into an exercise, or you're swimming or walking, and then suddenly you kind of forget. And it's the same, it's a type of meditation.
I think so, yes. And it can leave you feeling really, really nice afterwards. I think it's an excellent thing for anxiety or for worry. That being able to lose ourselves in an activity. And I think drawing's particularly good for that, because it does require a high degree of concentration. Okay, so something else I wanted to talk about was thinking about our mark making. Today I'm using a simple 2B pencil. I've actually sharpened it really quite sharp. I might even sharpen it a little bit more for this final stage. And I want us to think about how we can use the weight of mark in our drawing. So at this stage, everything's is sketched out quite loosely. And I'm going to go back over my drawing, and I'm going to think about whether I want hard, sharp marks or much sort of softer marks in places, whether I want them to be sort of organic marks that have a little bit of movement in them. When earlier I was talking about how we're creating a three-dimensional illusion on a two-dimensional plane. Now, a stronger mark will give the illusion of something being closer to us. So if we've got something that's crossing over something else, we want to make the thing that's closest to us slightly heavier mark, and something that's further back slightly lighter. So for example, up over here, where this petal is curving round, if I come back, in fact, I'm just going to sharpen my pencil. So I've got a really nice sharp point, because this cotton rag paper that we're using has a slight texture to it, and it really easily picks up the graphite. Okay, so I'm going to use a slightly sharper, heavier mark on this petal at the front as it overlaps, as it comes forward, and then the back of the petal that's underneath that fold there, I'm going to keep that lighter. And I might actually even have this bit of the petal that's further away from us over here, that's going to be slightly lighter. And then I've got wish I had the correct terms, but we have these little tiny green petals or leaves here around the base of the flower, and I'm going to just bring that one in again slightly heavier at the front there. In fact, I can see that this little section here feels like it overlaps that bit, so I'm going to make that slightly heavier. And changing the weight of our mark adds to this illusion of 3 dimensions, and it also just adds visual interest to a drawing. I'm going to come come back in and actually rub out some of my sort of fuzzy sketchy lines at the back there, because they're distracting a little bit. I can still see roughly where they were, and I can come back in. But I need only a sort of a hint of a suggestion of those petals there, because I want the eye to be drawn to these ones that are closest to us on the plant. Squashing those little leaves.
So one of the lovely things to do is, of course, to write the name of the flower. You can also write the date of when you did the drawing, or the year, and also the location, so you remember where the flower comes from, especially if you travel and create these drawings when you're traveling.
Is there a G?
Yeah. It's actually a nice name, isn't it?
It's a lovely name.
Stillingfleet.
It's lovely. I'm going to put my initials.
But that section is absolutely up to you, and then that's where you can get creative as well, by drawing a little box or...
So I've taken that idea from the Charles Rennie Mackintosh illustrations. Interestingly, on quite a few of the illustrations, not all of them, but some of them, he has his initials, and he also has his wife's initials as well, because apparently he did the pencil work and then she came in later and added the watercolour.
Oh,
I think that's lovely that they are little collaborative pieces. On the plastic, or on one of the mixing trays. And it's getting, I think it's getting that right consistency of paint that is really important when you're using the watercolours, because I don't think we want a dry brush effect. But if you get it too wet, then it's going to run and pool on the paper. It's quite nice. You want to start with lighter colours first, and then you can build up to a stronger colour. If you've got a little bit of yellow on it, I would start with the yellow rather than trying to put the yellow on at the end, because then sometimes the stronger colours, it's hard to paint the yellow over the top.